for something meaningful and life-changing to help you move through the challenges of life? Then join Bishop John A. McCullough II and the Friendship Christian Church of Gastonia for an inspirational message prepared just for you.
It is really a warning. And the warning is that we have for so long and for too many times come to the right time but did the wrong thing. Anybody in here, you ever done, come on somebody. It was the right time, but I did the wrong thing. So this is going to be momentum, unstoppable momentum part 2, but I want to subtitle it, Right Time, Wrong Turn. Right time, wrong turn. Now, it is taken out of the book of Deuteronomy, and you may be seated. Let me just give you the overview. Deuteronomy, in that first chapter, those of you who are scholars of the Bible, or maybe you are a beginner, there was a chosen group of people that God selected that he would send the Messiah through to redeem and save humanity. They were called the Israelites. At the time of the text, these people had been in bondage over 400 years in Egypt. God sent Moses as the deliverer to go to the king, to go to Pharaoh and tell Pharaoh to let God's people go. After much coercing and plagues that hit Egypt, finally the people were released, and they were to go to the place that God promised their forefathers. I am going to give you a land flowing with milk and honey. I'm going to take you to a prepared place. I'm going to set you up so wonderfully that you're going to live in houses you didn't build. You're going to drink from fountains that you didn't dig, wells that you didn't dig. I am setting you up. All you got to do is follow and trust me. The Bible says that when they started their move toward the promised land, get this now, an 11-day journey. It was 11 days from the crossing over the Red Sea to the place of promise. And now when we read in Deuteronomy, they have been marching around in the wilderness 40 years. What we were supposed to have already accomplished, what was supposed to be a short journey, a short excursion, we turn it into a lifetime of toil, pain, and frustration. And so the Bible says that they are coming now, and they've been out there 40 years, and Moses has been trying to direct them, and he's been trying to get them to hear God, and these people have been rebelling, they've been knocking, they've been grumbling and fussing and all of that, and God brings them down to Deuteronomy chapter number 1 again, and he says in verse 6, the Lord our God spoke to us in Horeb, saying, you have dwelt long enough at this mountain. Turn and take your journey and go to the mountains of the Amorites, to all the neighboring places in the plain, in the mountains, and in the lowland, in the south, and on the seacoast, to the land of the Canaanites, and to Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates. He says, see, I have set the land before you. Go in and possess the land which the Lord swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give to them and their descendants after them. Now, can I tell us this morning that we must agree that time and timing are very important. God is the God of seasons and the God of timing. Bishop Duncan Williams said this once, and I quote, God in his infinite wisdom has set Seasons, with their unique natures, outlooks, demands, and special levels of grace. The setting of seasons makes it easier to undertake the activities that help creation fulfill its purpose. You got to understand, misunderstanding of times and seasons will result in their abuse. And the abuse of time impairs the manifestation of purpose. And that's why the understanding of timing and seasons is really so significant. Dr. Morris Cerullo said this: the key to spiritual breakthrough is timing. Somebody say timing. So then everybody, all of us have been given 24 hours in a day and 7 days in a week. Amen. Now, the difference between one person and another is the value that one places on time. Think about it. You are where you are, wherever you are in your life, whatever stage, whatever status you are in life, whatever you feel you have accomplished or not having accomplished, you are where you are because of what you did yesterday. With your time and where you will be tomorrow is determined by what you are doing with your time today. Timing and seasons are very important. Insight about your future is hidden in your daily routine. You want to know what your future is going to look like? Look at what you're doing on a daily basis. You go through and critically look at what you do regularly, and you will gain some understanding about your future. If you're wasting time, if you're spending time, if you're doing things lollygagging and just acting like that there's no real hurry, then that's what you're going to get. But if you understand that I've got a future and I've got a hope and I've got destiny, then what you do today is going to impact your tomorrow, and an amen goes right there. And since God is providential and God sees way down the road, he knows that just right moment when you were to enter into the world. You know, often we say that, you know, I don't know if I could have lived in the 1930s. I don't know if I could have lived in the 18. We always say, I don't know if I could have lived in this era or that era. But the truth is that we were designed, we were created. God knew when we were going to be born, whether they say were unplanned, whether you were born and they said it was an accident, whether you were born and you were not born in wedlock, it was a just right time. You are no accident. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You could have been aborted. You could have been miscarried. You could have been stillborn, but you were none of those. No matter to who you were born, no matter what the situation was, it was a just right time for you to be born. And so since you've been born, God understood that I got a plan for your life. I've got a thing that I've got for you, and God is a God of seasons and timing. And since you were born at your just right time, God has a purpose and a plan for your life. And when you discover your purpose, you will begin to understand time. People who know their purpose have an insight about what should be done and usually work to get it done. You don't get caught up on a whole lot of stuff. Instead, you begin to focus and you begin to make your move, and you start using and utilizing the best use of time. When you grab a hold of your purpose, you can't quit. You're not going to complain about your being tired, but you're going to keep on pressing, and you will ignore all opposition until you have completed your assignment. Do I have anybody in here this morning who knows that there was some time that I was persevering, I was moving in a direction, I was on my way to something, and I know that there were many obstacles that got in the way, but because I had my sight on where I was going, I would allow nothing to stop me in my tracks. People say, I don't know how you endure. I don't know how you go through. It's all about purpose and timing. And I'm on assignment. I can't quit. I can't get caught up. You got to see life and you got to see purpose as a means and a way of reaching everything that God has designed for you. If you're going to be successful, you better understand seasons and timing. All right? When you understand the season, you will know how to dress accordingly. If you don't understand the seasons and timings, you go to Florida in July and go out on the beach with a mink coat on, because you don't understand seasons and timing. But when you understand seasons and timing, you will take the necessary steps to do what is required. God has a plan, and he is so awesome until the enemy that had it in for you, that if you had been 5 minutes earlier to the red light, then you would have started into the intersection, and there was a car that was just about to run the red light, but you got held up somewhere, and just because you got held up, my God, you missed what could have been coming. I just told the church on this morning that Friday night we were here with the couples, and the couples impartation had ended, and we were getting ready to leave, and there were a couple of couples left, and we began to look for our car key. I couldn't find my key anywhere. We searched everywhere. I mean, the ladies were searching. First lady searched her pocketbook 3 or 4 times. I said, empty it again. We couldn't find the keys. And finally, Deacon Doc, we were looking through the trash, and he emptied the whole trash can out on a plastic bag, went through there, and some kind of way the keys got caught up in the tablecloth and were thrown in the trash can. It took us about 30 minutes. We called people, asked, did you pick up keys by accident? Nobody had seen the keys, but when I got the keys, I said, you know what? It's been a little time, but that's all right, because I just sensed that this little hang-up, this little inconvenience of time, this little time of delay must have been that there was something that was going to happen to one of us in this room, and because this delay kept us right here, we stayed in a safe place until it was time to move. And so sometimes you got to recognize that I got to stop complaining. I got to stop looking at everything so negatively, because sometimes it's my blessing in disguise. I wish I had somebody in here. And so we got to understand timing and seasons are very significant. Now, I want to tell us this morning that it is very possible to come to the right time and make the wrong turn. You were praising God a minute ago for something. I don't know all that you've been praying. You and your wife, you and your husband, you and your children, you and your family, you for that job, you for that promotion, you for that position, whatever it is. God knows you're onto something. I sense it. I could see it in the room, the atmosphere. You were like a match. You've been believing. You've been watching others. And you can sense that, God, I believe 2016 must be it. You sense that? Anybody sense that? 2016, this must be it. God, what you've been going through in 13, 14. I told you at the beginning of the year that in this season of unstoppable momentum, you're going to accomplish more in 1 year than you have in the last 5. I don't know. See, somebody's going to grab. That's going to mean something to somebody. That's going to blow right over somebody's head. But you're getting ready to accomplish more in this 1 year than you have in the last 5. If that's for you, if it's not for you, that's all right. But if that's for you, give God a praise right there. If you could, and if you want to grab it by faith, and you begin to declare it. Say, yes, God, this is my season of acceleration. This is my season of going forward. This is my season that I shall accomplish more in this 1 year than I have in the last 5 years. And so you're there. And I just want to warn us this morning, because we have done it so many times, that you can get to the right timing of God and do the wrong thing. Oh, stop us, God. Stop us, God. We get to that place, and it's time to launch out. It's time to step out. It's time to do the business. It's time to transit. It's time to go to the next level. It's time to grow in God. It's time for God to use us to his greater glory. And I want you to understand that you can come to that time And there are many people who are living in regret now because they came to the juncture of life when God says, all right, it's time. I'm getting ready to do it. And he started to move, and you got to that point, and you made the wrong turn. My God, there are people frustrated now because you got to that place and you didn't listen and you didn't do what God said for you to do at that moment. And so I want to tell us this morning, I want to warn us that we don't ever want to get to that place where we come and we've gotten to the right time and we make the wrong turn. So let's look at this. We understand that God is the God of timing, and God is the God of seasons, and we understand that God knows exactly what he's doing. So let's look at this. The first thing you want to make sure that whenever you come to the right timing, you want to make sure that you understand where you're going. That's the first thing you got to do. You got to understand where you're going. That sort of rides on the heels of our last week's message when we talked about how you got to reaffirm your goals. You got to tell your neighbor, you got to know where you're going. You got to know where you're going. God had told the children of Israel, I'm taking you to a land. I'm taking you to Canaan. You had heard it. Moses has been preaching it. I've been telling you that you are going to a land flowing with milk and honey. I've been telling you that you're going to a place that I have promised your foreparents. You're going to a place where you're going to experience life like you have never experienced it before. And they came to that place, and God said, I'm taking you there. So you got to know where you're going. What has God been showing you? What has God been speaking to you? What has God been giving you in your time of meditation, in your time of prayer, about your family, about your career, about your life, about your ministry, about your next level in him? You got to know where you're going so that you will make sure that you stay on point. And then the second thing is that you got to understand that God will give the right signal at the time. God will give the right time signal. Now notice, if you will, that we got to be mindful that when you are in the midst of something, you may not get the full picture and the full understanding of what's happening, but somebody outside can get the perspective. And so the Israelites had come to the place of Horeb. This was the place that they had received the commandments. This was the place that they had been, and they had walked around. They ended up right back at the same place over and over. And so while they were at this place, God comes to the leader, and he says to the leader that you have been at this place long enough. Turn and take your journey into your next dimension. You have been in circles long enough. You are ready for what I have in store for you. Now understand, God is the one who gives the time signal. All right? While we think it may have been long enough is relative, and long enough is not long enough until God says it's time. I don't know about you. I don't want to move until God says move. I don't want to go any direction until God says go. I've had too many times where I moved out and I wasn't sure it was God. Am I by myself? Is there anybody else out here that you know that you came to the right time and then you were waiting and God did not say pursue, God did not say turn, God did not say go, and a whole lot of us have done some things that God did not say. I don't know about you, but I'm waiting on God. Somebody say you better learn how to wait on God. God knows the best time because he's the God who sees everything from the greater perspective. And so I want to warn somebody that God will give you the time. God will give you the instruction. God will tell you when it's time to shift, when it's time to turn, when it's time to reapply, when it's time to launch that business, when it's time to write that book. God will tell you when it's time. And then the third thing, that if you want to come to the right time and not make the wrong turn, God will reaffirm the promise. That's what he did for the children of Israel. Look at verse number 8 of Deuteronomy chapter 1. Are y'all still here? All right. Verse number 8. He said, see, I have set the land before you. Go in and possess the land which the Lord swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and to Jacob, to give to them and their descendants. God reaffirms, all right? He said, I'm moving you, I'm directing you, but I love God that God will make sure you got a clear understanding, and he will reaffirm. He'll say it again. He'll present it again. He'll give you the dream again. He'll give you the revelation again. Somebody will prophesy over you again. Some kind of way you'll read it and you'll catch it again, and God will remind you of who you are. He says, I know your past. I know everything concerning you, and I know your future, and I want to remind you of who you are in me. I want to tell you that every failure you've ever had is not the end of your story. Every mistake that you may have made is not the end of your destiny. And God will tell you again. I don't know about you, but I believe that God is speaking some things. He's saying, I know the things I think towards you, saith the Lord, to give you peace and not of evil, and to give you a hope and a future. Is there anybody in here who wants a hope and a future in God? You know, I've been trying it my way. I've been doing it my way, but I'm not going to do it my way again. God, you reaffirm who you are and who you want me to be and where you want me to go. Because if I wait on God, I know I'm going to be in the right time and the right place, and it's going to be the right thing. Is there anybody in here? So he tells them again. He says, I told you that I'm taking you in. And then the fourth thing I want to tell you, in order that you come to the right place and not make the wrong turn, is don't get distracted at critical moments. Uh-oh. Don't get distracted. Tell your neighbor. Don't get distracted at critical moments. I'm going somewhere. I'm not shouting for nothing. I'm not praising in advance to miss it. Huh? Come on, somebody. I'm not been praying and believing just to miss it. And so I got to be sure that I not get distracted. Now, when you look at the text here, verse 20, Deuteronomy chapter 1, Moses said, I said to you, you have come to the mountains of the Amorites, which the Lord our God is giving you. Look, the Lord your God has set the land before you. Go up and possess it as the Lord God of your fathers has spoken to you. Do not fear or be discouraged. At this point, you can miss your turn. You've been driving before. You've been going down the street and you've been moving, and all of a sudden you get to the place that you're supposed to turn and you got distracted. Happen to anybody? You know, it happens especially in unfamiliar places. When God is trying to take you to a place that you've not been. When you're going through some terrain that you're not familiar with. You know, you can be out of town. We've been out of town before, going to some conference or something, and we get to the airport and get a rental car, and then we turn on the GPS, and there we go, going through Dallas or going through Houston or somewhere, and I got two women in the car talking to me, so y'all know I'm about loony. I got the wife talking and I got the GPS talking. I said, wait a minute, I can't have two women talking to me at the same time telling me which way to go. I got to turn one of y'all off. First lady said, turn off the GPS because she telling me to turn. I'm saying, and then you mess around, you get distracted. You're doing something, you get distracted, and you miss your turn. And when you miss your turn, you understand that now I got to go all the way out the way. I've got to go all the way down in some direction. I got to try to find some kind of way to cross back over, and it's an inconvenience. And if you aren't careful, you will miss getting to the place you were supposed to be because you got distracted at a critical moment. And I stopped to tell us that the enemy wants to distract you at this critical moment. It's a destiny moment. All the signs are right, and the devil knows that you are approaching the right time to make your turn. Is there anybody who can feel I'm close? I'm too close. I'm closer now than I've ever been before. And I want to tell you that just as much as you were shouting and just as much as you were praising, I want you to know that the enemy is standing back and he's ready to throw in a way that he can distract you because you are at a critical moment. You wouldn't have been praising like you were praising. You wouldn't have been dancing like you were dancing if you were not at a critical moment. And the devil knows that I got to do something to distract. Tell your neighbor, be careful right about here. You better tell the other neighbor, say, neighbor, you got to be sensitive right about here, because you have come up on your next dimension. And if the devil wants to distract you, he will do it at a critical moment, because he knows you are approaching what you've been promised. And he wants to distract you. He'll do it with sin. He'll do it with other people. He'll do it with fear. If he can get you into some kind of sin trap, he'll do it. Sin would take you off your purpose. Sin is always designed to keep you out of the will of God. You can't serve two masters. You were doing well on your way, and you started some old behavior. Come on. Anytime you sense that old lifestyle coming back, you better know it's a distraction from the devil. You better mind how you began to allow distraction to move you off of your purpose, because it was the strategy of the devil. He uses sex with young people. He uses drugs. He uses all kinds of situation. He'll cause you to do something illegal, because he can sense that you must be up to what God has promised you, and he'll send somebody by that will set to lead you off course. Tell your neighbor, you got to be careful in this season not to be distracted. This is a critical moment. The enemy will use fear. It's your time to turn and possess, and then he tells you that you're going to fail. It's your time to step out in faith. God's been promising you. You've been setting up your plan, and you've been doing all the things. You've been strategizing. You've been meeting with the right people, and now it's time to step out, and the enemy puts fear. He distracts you with fear. You're going to fail. Do you think you must be crazy? Nobody like you will be able to achieve this. Nobody can write this. Nobody like you can do this. You made too many mistakes, and he will put fear in your. All the devil is doing is trying to distract you at a crucial point. He can distract you when you get blessed too. He make you think now more highly of yourself than you ought. That's why some folk lose their footing when God blesses them. Don't think now that the enemy doesn't try to distract you and he only uses these traps of sin and all these other things. No, he will use pride. Make you think now that you have arrived, and that now you are at such a place now you become distracted with yourself. You become caught up in yourself. Come on, somebody. You got to make sure that you come to the right time and that you make the right turn. Now understand then that God sees you, and God knows exactly what he is doing. And I want to tell you right now that the next thing that you got to make sure is that you, number 5, stop seeking man's validation and rely on God's confirmation. If I don't say anything else, stop seeking man's validation and rely on God's confirmation. You want to see that in the text? Go down to verse number 22. And every one of you, this is right after he said, go in and possess. And it says, and every one of you came near to me and said, let us send men before us, and let them search out the land for us, and bring back word to us of the way by which we should go up, and of the cities into which we shall come. God's already told them what's over there. God's already given them the revelation that this is a land flourishing, that it's good ground. It's the right thing for you. It's the plan I have for you. But they needed man's validation. They said, let us send some man over. And that's what they did. God spoke to the leader. It was time to turn. God said it's the right time. The people should have said, let's go. But they needed man's validation. All right? And we are like that today. My God, there are too many who are living in frustration and aggravation because you came to that right time, you came to the right moment, but you chose the wrong thing. You got to understand that you got there and you needed to hear what somebody else said. You wanted to get the opinion of what somebody else said. You wanted to hear what somebody else thought, and they may not even be anybody that has any real concern for you, and you waiting on their validation. You waiting on them to second your motion. Well, I want to tell you, baby, that you better quit waiting on people, because there's some people who want to see you fall. There's some people who want to see you miss. There's some people that will smile in your face and they will stab you in the back and hope that you fail, and you waiting on them to validate you. But is there anybody in here who says if God says shift, if God says move, if God says grow, if God says it's time to turn, I'm not waiting on your opinion? And there are a whole lot of people, you're sitting down now because you're waiting on somebody else to like you. You won't move in the power that God says you should because you're trying to be everybody's good buddy. Well, I've learned a long time ago that if you're going to be what God calls you to be, there are going to be some folk that you're going to have to look at and you're going to have to say later. There are going to be some folk that I'm going to have to snip. There are going to be some folk that I got to break camp with. There are going to be some folk, because if God says that he knows who I am and he says I know what I have planned for you, I'm not going to wait on man's validation. Somebody give him a praise right there. What you think? I don't know. Let me get back to you, and you don't ever hear from them. Huh? You're hesitating and you're waiting on them and all that stuff. And I want to tell you that whenever you wait on man's validation, you got to recognize that sometimes he'll leave you hanging. And sometimes he'll give you a word that'll mess you up. You waiting on them. You put so much hope and faith in what they say, what their opinion is, what they think. But what did God say? God said, go in. Let me show you this in the text. God said, go in. They said, let's send out some spies and see if it's over there what God says. Now, notice that Moses said, okay, go ahead. And then they went out. They went into the land. You read it in verses 23 down to 28. They went out. They went into the land, and God showed them. They came back with the fruit. They came back bringing fruit, man. But they sent 12 spies out. But when they got there, they saw that there were giants. They saw the walled cities. They saw problems. They saw challenges, even in the midst of the blessing. I got to tell somebody that you got to recognize that even in the midst of growth, even in the midst of productivity, even in the midst of advancement and progress, there will be challenges. God didn't say the road would be easy. He said, but I'll be with you. So because they needed validation and they needed to wait on man's approval, they come back. 10 of the people said, we can't do it. 2 people said, we can do it. They were waiting on the validation of somebody else, and because that they got the bad report, the blessing is there, but there. And see, we live among people that want easy street, that will quit at the midst of adversity, that will quit at the midst of challenge, that will walk away when things get tough. We live in that kind of easygoing culture, but you got to work and understand that anything worth having is worth going through some challenges. I'm going to have some trials. I may have some difficulties, but if God promised it, the blessing is going to be better than the problems. Do I have anybody? And so they did not go. They rebelled against God. And Moses said, my God, you are fearing. God was with you in Egypt. God was with you in the wilderness. God was with you. God took care of you. God fed you manna every day. He gave you every provision. He didn't allow your shoes to wear out. And now it's time to trust him for the next level. And you waiting on man's validation. But I stopped to tell somebody else that, listen, forget about man's validation and begin to stick with God's confirmation. If God said it, I believe it. That's settled. Let's clap the hand right there if you believe that. And then another thing you got to do, remember now, we're talking about right time, wrong turn. All right? The sixth thing you got to do is you need to identify who's keeping you out. Huh? You need to identify who's keeping you out. Are y'all listening? Moses was not able to go into the promise. Now here is Moses. He's been leading the people for 40 years. He's been frustrated with them, aggravated with them, trying to tell them what God said. Should have taken 11 days, 40 years. You should have had it done by now. You should have gone on into that thing by now. Now I got to see, what is it that's keeping me out? Moses discovered, and you got to be careful, because God told Moses, he said in verse 37, the Lord was angry with me for your sake. Now you know Moses is upset that now he's been waiting to go into the promise, and he's not going to go into the promise because of the people. But how is that? You got to be careful not to allow the actions of others to keep you from moving into your place of purpose and destiny. Huh? Moses' frustration with these rebellious people caused him to err in following the command of God. There was a time when the water was short. They needed water. And God told Moses to take the rod and strike the rock, and the water would come forth. He struck the rock, the water came forth. There was another time when there was a shortage, and God said, don't strike the rock this time, but speak to the rock. But Moses was dealing with these people in their rebellion, and out of it, he struck the rock again. And God said, I'm angry at you. You did not do what I said. And because of it, you are going to miss going into the promise. You better find out who it is and what it is that's keeping you out of your place of victory. My God, you got to understand that the action that Moses did kept him out on behalf of the people. And that's why I told you a minute ago, you got to reevaluate your support base. You got to reevaluate your circle of friends. You might have to cut some buddies. You might have to let some dogs go. You might have to let some partners loose. You might have to tell some sister girls later on, because when you are connected with people and they are the wrong people, it can be the right time, but because of the connection, it can cause you to turn in the wrong direction. Is there anybody who's determined, I'm not going to let anybody, you, your mama, too, nobody is going to keep me from the place God has for me? Come on, somebody. You better identify. You better recognize. Tell your neighbor, you better recognize. Everybody in your circle don't want to see you go in. You got to understand that this is the hour for you to get to your right turn. You just got to say, listen, I'm going to be polite, and I'm going to say I'm unfriending you. Have y'all ever felt funny unfriending somebody? I mean, come on, you kind of, you feel a little something, don't you? There have been some folk that I'm like, man, I don't want to hurt their feeling. But when you see my picture show back up as a possibility friend, that means I unfriended you, right? There's some people you need to unfriend. You need to say, you know what? I got to unfriend you. Because folk can help keep you out either by something you allow them to cause you to do or something they do, especially people who don't want any more out of life. They don't want to see anything else. They don't want to reach for anything else. They won't move, and they hate to see you move. They will keep you out, and you need to get radical and say, out of my way. God just gave me the green light. It's my season. It's my time. This is the set time to favor me. He shall cause himself to be roused, and he is going to move in my behalf, and I don't have time to let anybody keep me out. You better ask your neighbor, say, neighbor, who's keeping you out? Who's been keeping you out? And then let me tell you this, and I'm done, I promise you. Number 7, y'all got these 7 points. Number 7, we go into this issue of trying to make the right turn when the season has passed. Moses said to the people, God said, turn, and y'all rebelled. God said, it's time for you to move into that next dimension. It's time for you to grow. And you just kept complaining and fussing, cussing, grumbling. Some of us are just think about listen to the people, listen to some of the people you hang with. They say just fuss all the time about everything. Nothing right. You ever seen people like that? Nothing's right. Just always complaining. Every time they wake up complaining. They go to bed complaining. They complain with a loaf of bread under their arm. Still complaining. Fussing. Still grumbling. You ever seen folk like that? Rebelling. God said, listen, I want better for you. I want you to experience more in your life, and you're still complaining. You're still grumbling. And you understand then that when God says, that's it, that's it. God said, okay, here it is. None of you in this generation over 20 years old will make it into the promised land. Only Joshua and Caleb. You read the first chapter of Deuteronomy. God said, that's it. The window, the door is closed. And guess what these people now going to do? Look at verse number 41. Then you answered and said to me, we have sinned against the Lord. We will go up and fight, just as the Lord our God commanded us. And when every one of you had girded on his weapons of war, you were ready to go up into the mountain. And the Lord said to me, tell them, do not go up nor fight, for I am not among you, lest you be defeated by your enemies. So I spoke to you, yet you would not listen, but rebelled against the command of the Lord, and presumptuously went up into the mountain. And the Amorites who dwelt in that mountain came out against you and chased you as bees do, and drove you back from Seir to Hormah. The season passed. They over there trying to put on the uniform now. God said, oh, that's it. They over there trying to put on their war clothes now. Oh, God, we're sorry. We're ready to do it. We didn't listen. We were hard-headed. We were out partying. We weren't thinking about what you had assigned us to be. We were trying to be something else, but we're sorry. And he said, no, the season is ended. Don't go. And they still rebelled. They were still full of rebellion. They went anyway. Huh? You got to recognize there's a time. And that's why seasons and timing is so important. That you will begin to try to move, and the season has passed. I told the church this morning about a pastor who was working a secular job. Pretty good job, great benefits, and he was 7 or 8 years out from retirement. God said, I need you to go to the church full time. I need you to trust me and go and do the work. The church was ready, the community ready, the city was ready, everything was set, the church was growing, and the man said that my job is so wonderful, and I want to retire, I want to have all my full benefits, and he said, I'm going to work out these last few years, and so he did. He worked out the last 7 or 8 years, and he came to that time where he retired from the secular position, and then he came to the church. He said, I'm ready to go full time, Lord. I'm ready to commit myself. But when he started to work, the work never got off the ground because he was trying to come and the season had passed. It can be the right time and you make the wrong turn and you find yourself trying to move when the season's passed. It might be the right thing to do now, but the season has passed. That's why I told you at the beginning, God is the God of timing and seasons. Sensitivity. You got to be in tune. You got to hear God. You got to be willing to trust God. God knows what your prayers have been. He knows why you desire the things you desire because he put them in you. He knows the dreams you have. He knows the kind of things you are aspiring to do and be because he put it in you. He's the one that can get you to be that dream catcher. He's the one that can get you to be that destiny chaser. He's the one that can get you to walk in your promise and purpose. These people missed. I want to warn us in this season of unstoppable momentum that we not come to a right time and do the wrong thing. The right time.
If you're looking for dynamic worship, inspirational teaching, and a friendly atmosphere, you can visit us on Sundays at 221 West Bradley Street in Gastonia, North Carolina. For more information about our ministry, you can call 704-865-9016. To order your personal copy of today's message or any other broadcast, please call 704-865-9016 and indicate the broadcast date. Or you can just visit us online at www.friendshipgastonia.com. Thank you for tuning in to today's broadcast with Bishop John A. McCullough II and the Friendship Christian Church. Make sure you join us next week at the same time. And remember, let God take control and let the Spirit flow.